seeing the proliferation of the Western way of life around the world these days. But aside from the stores and stuff, there is a normal, you have to plug in, you have to want to, but there's a normal culture that you're welcome to be a part of.
Yeah. No. Yeah, exactly. No, it's totally normal. And it's the culinary scene. That's a whole other thing. But there's businesses around the culinary scene now. You do beer, you do microbrew tours.
Oh,
there's
really?
Microbrew. Yeah, there's enough of them now. Besides the Baja Brewing Company, that there's a group. There's some mastermind decided that he'd do beer tours.
What a great idea!
To Flora Farm, and it's kind of like a step on, step off, or one of those buses or tours that takes you around. So a lot of cottage industry, and we still have our other large industry here is organics, and the organic market. Remember the little organic market?
Oh yeah,
over.
Yep.
Yeah, that still goes strong every Saturday, and it's amazing the businesses which have come out of that too. So I think some people have surprised themselves with what they thought was making a bar of soap. Now a bar of soap and some hand cream is now a great business, which brings they make their living doing it.
Sure.
So
sure.
Not a side business anymore.
So, hey, let's shift gears here a little bit. I want to take advantage of the fact that I have a true expert in the real estate world on the show here, and we've kind of delved into it a few times about the whole ownership versus trust and so on. And I don't know if we've ever really gone too deep into detail, and we don't have to go that far. But people always ask, "Oh, you can't own real estate in Cabo or in Mexico," and as we know that's not necessarily the case. And I have tried to kind of briefly explain what the trust or the fideicomiso in the Spanish word is for it. But could you kind of explain? And I usually, when I explain it, I usually start off with the fact that and correct me if I'm wrong here, but there is a rule or a law within the Mexican Constitution that states that no foreigner shall own land within 60 kilometers of a coastline or a international border. And to my knowledge, that was developed or part of the Constitution to help protect the national sovereignty of the country. They didn't want foreigners coming in and buying up an entire coastline and then being surprised that it was actually a bunch of politicians or something to then create another country. Is that somewhat accurate, and can you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had heard the last part of it, but I think the word protect was the biggest the biggest reason they added that to added the fideicomiso or the foreign ownership to the Constitution. And it's a topic, ownership is a huge topic. We address it almost daily, especially in real estate. And I have a great nickel version, I call it, of explaining the bank trust. So one can understand. The myth is it's a 99-year lease. That's a total myth. It's not applicable. You own the property, fee simple, through a bank trust. So that means it's like a living will. And I think living wills are quite popular, especially in the United States.
Yeah, they are.
So the bank holds the title to the property. You're the beneficiary of the property. And you can assign your sub-beneficiaries, probably like you and me, Ryan, but we own property here. Probably have our sisters, brothers, or kids, or somebody who are the beneficiaries, or the sub-beneficiaries rather. And it's a document which you pay a maintenance fee every year, anywhere from $450 to $800 a year, depending on which bank holds it. Most of the trusts now, all the trusts now are 50-year, and they're renewable in perpetuity. And what that means is that as soon as that trust expires, a simple meeting with the bank, and you renew it again for another 50 years. It's not like you get it for 50 years and then it's not yours anymore.
So let me ask the dumb question, and this would apply especially to me. So 50 years pass and I forget to renew it. What happens?
That's a great question. So we haven't really had that happen because the 50-year trust came into play probably about 15 to 20 years ago. Prior to that, the trusts were 10 and 30 years. So some of those people who had those 10 and 30-year trusts have had to renew them. And some have forgotten. The bank doesn't do anything with the property, but when somebody goes to pay their bank trust dues, the bank will say, oh, by the way, your trust is expired. We need to renew the paperwork. So you want to keep up to date with your trust payments. You don't want to let them go in arrears for more than 2 or 3 or 4 years. You don't want to let your property taxes not be paid for 2 or 3 or 4 years. You don't want to let your homeowners dues, if you have homeowners dues, go in arrears. All of those are signs for somebody to come along and go, who's not taking care of this property? And then they can go and, address how they would be able to acquire it. And I don't want anybody to think that that's happening or has happened at all. But you have to protect your investment. It doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Sure.
Right.
But so yeah. I think the important thing is to point out that you're not at risk to losing your property after the trust is up. You've got to renew it, and even if you don't renew it, it's not like the Mexican government is coming in and saying, shame on you, it's ours now.
Exactly. And there's a couple of other points which I've always found interesting, is that Mexican nationals can own property through a fideicomiso. And I've done a couple of transactions in my real estate life here where Mexicans have said, oh, no, we want it in a fideicomiso. And the biggest reason is this: you can't lien a bank. So that means if you have an escritura of or a deeded ownership as a Mexican national, if you owe somebody money, they can go through the process to, just like they would in the United States or Canada, that's where I'm from. You could have them you could lien a property, but with a fideicomiso, you have a fully safe ownership because you can't lien a bank. So if you wanted to get a mortgage, which are very challenging to get, that's a whole other topic. But say the bank did approve a loan for you, you needed a loan for your property, that loan would be attached to your fideicomiso. And once the terms of the loan had been fulfilled and the loan had been paid off, then you go to the bank, you say, here's the paperwork, I've done this. Then the bank goes, okay, we're going to make sure we adjust that in your fideicomiso so that when your kids get it in another 20 or 30 years, they're not going, what do you mean there's a loan on it?
Right.
It might say there was a loan on it, but the loan was fulfilled and paid and everybody did the paperwork. So it keeps everything in one little package of ownership. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see it go. Just because you have to pay a fee every year. Who cares?
Sure. Well, so listen, we've kind of gone around on a bunch of different topics, and I did want to circle back to something that you mentioned, and you're probably not going to pick up on this until I bring it up, and that was the surf contests and then the barbecues and or the parties that we used to. And it wasn't just around the surf contests. We would have full moon parties down there where all of Gringo Hill would go down and we'd have do a potluck and eat on the beach. And I guess where I'm going with that, and I'd love for you to kind of expand on this, and I miss this part of living down there, and that is the small town, just the feel of getting together with the community. You go to stores and you see people that and it doesn't have to be Cabo or Mexico or Baja for that matter. I would assume that's a common thing in small towns around the world. Me being from San Diego, it wasn't something that I necessarily experienced until I moved to Cabo and then started really connecting with the community. But tell me about what that's like. Is it still happening? Are people still getting together in the evenings and hanging out? I sure hope so, because someday when I move back there, I want to do it again.
Yeah. I think, and maybe it's a little bit with age, I like going home earlier now than I used to. but I kind of really like that idea of fine linens and, a good night's sleep, and waking up feeling great in the morning. But, it's still, there certainly is a small town feel. And what I've noticed even more, Ryan, is that it doesn't matter how thick your pocketbook is with cash or your bank account is or whatever. It's like everybody really appreciates the common Baja bond.
Yeah.
And I've written an article which I love, which are what are the 10 best things about Cabo. Well,
oh, great. Let's
weather.
hear them.
Okay, so the weather, I'll see if I can remember them all. The weather, number one, the weather. You could meet, doesn't matter who you are, you meet somebody and they go, oh my God, isn't this a great day? Why is it a great day? Because it's usually average 80 degrees, 75 to 80 degrees, light winds or surf or it's just beautiful out. Second, the people. It doesn't matter whether you're a homeowner who gets, your gardener comes over once a month, or you're living, in a Gucci property like I'm at tonight, and you've got somebody who comes and cooks you breakfast, and somebody else doing your laundry, and somebody else washing your car, and all, everything. It doesn't matter. The people who help us to live our day-to-day lives are so full of joy and so happy to be doing their jobs. They're so happy to make that taco for you when you're out, at a taco stand or at the hot dog stand, or, picking up your six-pack from the little local store, which, by the way, I still like those little mom-and-pop local stores and support them.
Sure.
But they have the coldest beer. And then, so the weather, the people, the food is, as you know, Baja tacos were, I think, the staple food back in the day, but now it's grown into this culinary experience every single night if you want. Everything from bone marrow to Argentinian grills to Italian restaurants. Well, there's always been Italian restaurants here, but there's and Baja food to more national foods. Moles, you can go get a mole here, even though it's not indigenous to the Baja. So that's three. Now I'm going to get into the golf. The golf, I can go on forever about golf.
I got to tell you a funny story about golf. And this is for the listeners as well. So I wasn't a golfer before I moved down there. And it seemed that everybody that I knew at some point had become a golf marshal. And that was kind of one of the social things you did. You go be a golf marshal, you get your free couple of rounds of golf a week, and then you trade them with your buddies and you go golfing. So that was kind of how I started golfing. Mm-hmm. I had no idea how perfect and beautiful and immaculate and amazing the Cabo golf courses were compared to golf courses in other places around the world. And when I moved back to San Diego, actually Alfredo Salafranco was the guy who came up and he goes, "Oh, let's go golf at Torrey Pines." And I knew that Torrey Pines was, I mean, that's where the I think it's, I don't know, some famous golf tournament. I think it's the U.S. Open or something. So I'm thinking the whole time I'm driving there, like, this is going to be amazing. It's right in La Jolla, overlooking Black's Beach, but the reality of it was, when we got there, it was such a disappointment. After cutting my teeth, if you will, on the golf courses of Cabo, seeing the best of the best in San Diego was a big letdown. It was nowhere near as nice as the Cabo golf courses.
Oh, people come here, and they come down here just to golf.
Yeah.
There's groups that come down, and it's great. It's part of our tourism. So the golf for sure is, and it's, fortunately and unfortunately, it's growing. I think we are in a desert, and water is, without getting into a water topic, water is a challenge, but they're figuring it out. They have different grasses, and they keep a lot of desert scape, but beautiful golf courses. So the golf, I think golf is kind of behind the one that I missed, and that's the water in the ocean. The water in the ocean is, it doesn't matter if you're a 3-year-old and you want to go, play around in the sand on the beach of Palmilla, or you're a surfer like we are and you want to go find a place where it's just you and your buddy, don't surf alone, out on the East Cape catching little nuggets. The ocean is amazing, and we need to protect it, but in the meantime, the color of it, it's just gorgeous down here, and the water temperature for the most part is in the high 70s, definitely into the 80s, and high 80s in the summer, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So you come down to the ocean. I know that's what drew me. And I never thought I'd be a surfer when I was driving down in that pickup truck. My gosh. But now I do it And what a dream job. So this morning, Ryan,